He is about to completely fall into darkness. Clearly, if everyone just tells the truth, they can pay off the 20 million debt. But someone, out of selfish motives, keeps answering incorrectly on purpose. As a result, Yuichi decisively changes from his usual gentle self. To achieve victory, he will stop at nothing. He wants the traitors to experience what true despair really is. Before that, the 2 million class trip funds have mysteriously vanished. The responsible officer, Shiho, is naturally the prime suspect. However, no matter how much she pleads for the culprit to confess, no one stands up to admit it until school ends. At first, Yuichi thought there must be some trickery involved. But that night, he and 4 friends received a mysterious letter simultaneously, requesting them to meet at the school gate. Just as Yuichi began to suspect a setup, someone suddenly knocked him out. The other 4 were also taken control of by a mysterious organization. When Yuichi woke up, they found themselves in a closed room, and soon after, a strange-looking doll named Makoto appeared. Makoto explained that they were invited to participate in a game. For each game they clear, they would earn 2 million. If they cleared bonus levels, there would be additional rewards. This way, they could instantly repay the 20 million they owed. Upon hearing this, Yuichi was nearly dumbfounded. He usually had pickled vegetables with steamed buns for breakfast and lived a frugal life to save money. How could such a large debt suddenly appear? However, Makoto stated that if it wasn't Yuichi, then it must be one of the other 4 who owed the money. This game was only possible because that person submitted the 2 million registration fee to participate. In other words, this person was the same one who stole the class funds. Makoto gave the 5 of them 2 options. Either they all share the debt and participate in the game challenge to earn the prize, or they could withdraw from the game and be sent home. However, if they withdrew, the 2 million registration fee would be wasted. Finally, Makoto gave them 2.5 minutes to consider. As the atmosphere fell into silence, Shiho spoke up with her opinion. She believed that the person who registered wasn't trying to trap everyone, but was likely facing some personal dilemma that they couldn't resolve, which is why they sought help from the other 4. After all, everyone present shared a genuine friendship. Understanding this, they unanimously decided to participate. After all, they were friends. However, Yuichi was greatly shocked. Was this what they called sharing blessings and bearing difficulties together? Since that was the case, he had no choice but to join. Makoto then brought everyone to the first game scene. Each person was given a name tag that recorded their respective debts. There was a rule that they could not show their tags to others. Otherwise, their debts would double. The game they were about to play was a fox spirit game. They would take turns asking a question, and then everyone would place a finger on a coin based on their answers of yes or no. If everyone had the same answer in mind, they would pass. Moreover, each person would reduce their debt by 400,000. Conversely, if the answers were inconsistent, the coin would move to the minority side. If they failed to clear the game, the person with the highest debt would bear everyone else's debts. After understanding the rules, the game officially began. At that moment, Yuichi thought the game was so simple. It was too good to be true. Little did he know, the true horror of this game was yet to unfold. As the first questioner posed a common-sense question, who would have thought the coin pointed to the wrong answer? Seeing this, Shiho was about to question who was playing tricks, but Yuichi and the others quickly covered her mouth. It turned out there was another rule to this game. If someone spoke without permission, their debt would double. Before Yuichi could ponder who deliberately chose the wrong answer, the second round began. Shiho's question was whether 1 + 1 = 2. Such a simple question could be answered correctly even by someone using their feet. However, the coin once again landed on the wrong option. Clearly, there was a traitor among the 5. Thinking about recent conflicts, Yuichi remembered how Makoto was slapped for trying to kiss Shiho. He tried to mediate, but when he found Shiho, she claimed she didn't care about Makoto's actions at all. Instead, it was Yuichi who had made her a bit upset. Her shy demeanor left Yuichi confused, and she used this opportunity to pry a personal secret from him. Fast forward to the present, and it was soon Tenji's turn to ask a question. The question was still quite simple, but the coin once again failed to choose correctly. After 3 consecutive wrong answers, Yuichi could no longer hold back. He was baffled by why someone would betray them. However, when he received the question card, everything became clear. It stated that if the coin pointed to the wrong answer, the questioner's debt would be halved. Yuichi couldn't help but speculate that the first 3 people had intentionally chosen wrong for self-preservation. As Yuichi's expression changed, the organizers became intrigued, curious about how he would choose. After all, no group had successfully completed all 5 questions in the Fox Spirit game so far. Just as Yuichi decided to choose wrong to reduce his debt by half, he suddenly recalled the warm moments shared with Yutori. If he chose wrong like everyone else for his own sake, Yutori, as the last questioner, would likely bear everyone's debts. In the end, Yuichi still posed a simple question, unaware that the answer was still wrong. He casually wondered if anyone wanted to place all the debts on Yutori to pass the game. At this point, Yuichi was already furious, realizing there really was a traitor among them. But then he suddenly noticed something different about the 5th question card. The question was, will we always be friends? The organizers understood that if this were the first question, everyone would likely choose correctly to pass. However, after 4 rounds of testing, no one could be sure of the outcome. Just when the organizers thought everything was going as planned, Yuichi voluntarily broke the rules and spoke, doubling his debt. He joked about the girl's underwear colors, causing his debt of 4 million to double. At the same time, he threw out a false piece of information. If they failed to pass smoothly, all debts would transfer to the person with the least debt. Upon hearing this, the organizers couldn't help but admire Yuichi's line of thought. If everyone followed the rules, the traitor would definitely benefit the most. However, Yuichi was willing to double his own debt to gain control of the game. In other words, now anyone who spoke would be the traitor. And Yuichi had cut off the traitor's escape route. If they continued to choose wrong, they could end up bearing all the debts. As Yuichi had anticipated, the traitor ultimately didn't dare to gamble, leading to a smooth conclusion of the first game. Each person received a 400,000 bonus, and the debt was reduced to 3.6 million. But the exact real number was something only they themselves knew. Yuichi also falsely claimed that he met the specific conditions of the question to offset the debt doubling. Then, Makoto suggested heading to the rooftop for a brief rest before starting the second game. However, Yuichi made an excuse to stay behind and secretly investigated the content of everyone's question cards, looking for some breakthroughs. But the organizers had anticipated this. The key information was written in special ink that would disappear after a set time. At this moment, Shiho approached. She, like Yuichi, suspected there was a traitor in the group, with her first suspicion falling on Yuichi. However, because she liked him, she chose to conceal her doubts. After the recent events, Shiho had eliminated Yuichi from suspicion. She then revealed her actual debt was 7.6 million, likely due to accidentally making noise during the game. She expressed her loyalty, stating she would never betray Yuichi, and hoped they could clear the game together. While the two were building a strong bond of trust, Tenji was secretly eavesdropping. Soon, the second game officially began, involving a game similar to Monopoly where players would jump squares. However, the movement was determined not by dice but by the audience's ratings. Everyone could write negative comments about anyone present, and according to the severity of these comments, the audience would vote on who was most unforgivable. The more votes received, the further they could advance. If even one person reached the finish line, they would all clear the game and each receive 400,000. However, the first to finish would face a mysterious penalty, while the closest to the starting point would receive a super gift pack, which included an extra 1 million bonus, exemption from the third round, and even the chance to go home for an hour. All this had to be predicated on exposing friends' faults or secrets. At first, everyone decided to cooperate and reach the finish line together. However, after just 2 rounds, they realized something was off. Each square triggered random events, and now everyone owed an additional 600,000. It was clear the organizers had anticipated this. Trying to clear together was the most foolish choice. Seeing this, Makoto pointed out that the extra debt would be counted against the first person to reach the finish line. Thus, in the first round, Shiho's 2 secrets were revealed. She liked Yuichi, and was Tenji's ex-girlfriend. The organizers couldn't help but laugh, as relationships between men and women often create distance. Sure enough, Makoto soon became restless. If Yuichi knew Shiho liked him, then his earlier actions would just make him look like a fool. Makoto's agitation triggered a chain reaction, and Tenji and Shiho had to reminisce about the past. It turned out that due to family ties, they had been betrothed since childhood. To avoid worrying their parents, they pretended to date for a while. However, Tenji then revealed that he had been serious about their relationship and had long liked Shiho. Therefore, every time he saw Makoto's casual remarks and behavior towards her, Tenji felt very displeased. As the tension between the two grew, it seemed they were about to fight. Fortunately, Yuichi intervened just in time, suggesting that since both liked Shiho, they shouldn't do anything to hurt her. On the surface, Shiho appeared to be the most hurt, but unbeknownst to them, it was Yutori, who secretly liked Yuichi, that was the most upset. Despite having 3 friends of the opposite sex nearby, none of them liked her. Soon, the 4th round began. Both Makoto and Yuichi had only minor embarrassing secrets exposed, but Shiho was accused of having undergone plastic surgery. Although this was clearly a false accusation, the insults and aggression escalated significantly. Next, Yutori was about to have a shocking secret revealed that far surpassed any rumors of cosmetic surgery. When this scandal broke, she completely broke down and immediately questioned Shiho. However, Shiho swore it wasn't her who wrote it. Yutori explained that she had been bullied for a long time in middle school, and to avoid further bullying, she had to pay a lot of money. Later, to earn money, she reluctantly resorted to a certain path. Although she hadn't engaged in any inappropriate relationships, the online community wouldn't believe her, and her explanations felt painfully inadequate. At that moment, Yutori was even more distraught. She just hoped Yuichi would believe her. Yuichi reassured her that regardless of the truth, he would always stand by her side. As for how Shiho knew Yutori's secret, it was because she had encountered Yutori being harassed by a group of delinquents in high school, and, out of kindness, chose to help her. After Shiho asked about her situation, Yutori revealed her secret, and Shiho promised to keep it confidential. At this moment, the traitor who had stolen 2 million to enter the game finally surfaced. He wrote about Shiho's supposed plastic surgery to create a rift between her and Makoto, who was pursuing her. In reality, Shiho's facial procedures were merely to remove scars. Through constant surveillance, he accidentally discovered Yutori's secret. By exposing this secret, he had caused all of Shiho's friends to distance themselves from her. While Shiho was still puzzled about who was sabotaging Yutori, Tenji suspected that it was Shiho herself who had written it. Initially, Shiho found this hard to believe, but it was obvious to everyone that Yutori liked Yuichi. This made it difficult for Shiho not to suspect that Yutori, upon learning of her feelings for Yuichi, was trying to gain his attention by revealing her own secret. Soon, it was Tenji's turn to write a negative comment. Considering he was the farthest from the finish line, and had never had any bad comments about himself, he chose to write something negative about himself to alleviate suspicion. Just as Tenji was about to present his comment, Shiho revealed what she thought Yutori had exposed. Tenji was thrilled by this, as it meant the relationship between Yuichi and Shiho was beginning to fracture. In this round, 2 negative comments appeared. The first was Tenji's own lie about his age, and the second was Yutori's comment about Shiho's plain underwear. Tenji then shifted the suspicion of his own bad comment onto Shiho, ensuring that she would stick closely to him. His manipulation was truly chilling. At this moment, Shiho encountered a special event in her square, allowing her to specify a secret to be exposed. The host suggested she choose someone she trusted. Just as Shiho was about to pick Tenji, Makoto voluntarily requested to expose his secret. Upon learning that Shiho hadn't had plastic surgery, Makoto planned to play the role of the devoted admirer, hoping to win Shiho's favor. Confident that he had little dirt on himself, he was shocked when the next moment revealed that his father not only engaged in corruption, but also had a chaotic personal life, making him a complete scoundrel. However, kind-hearted Shiho decided not to judge her friends based on the character of their parents. The next second, she was interrupted by Tenji, who pointed out that Makoto's father had recently been spending large sums of money to cover up scandals. Tenji cleverly used this to shift 20 million of debt onto Makoto. As a result, Makoto advanced 9 spaces, moving up to second place. Tenji planned to eliminate Makoto first but was worried that writing too many negative comments would raise suspicion about him, so he chose to skip a turn. Yet there was still one negative comment in this round that stated, "Makoto has killed someone in the past." At this moment, Tenji was also shocked. Regardless of whether it was true or not, he wondered who had written it. At this moment, Yuichi wore a cunning expression. "Can you believe it? This student actually dared to kill someone in the early stages." Makoto vehemently denied it. Tenji also felt that even if Makoto's father was a scoundrel, Makoto wouldn't be crazy enough to do something like that. Tenji knew that Yuichi was the one who had written that negative comment and was now just worried about what method Yuichi might think of to clear the game. Just then, Makoto demanded to verify the truth of the accusation. But how could one prove such a thing? Moreover, it was possible that Makoto's father might cover up his crimes. The host chose to confirm it through audience voting. At this time, Makoto desperately defended himself, claiming that since his father would always clean up the mess he caused, he had no reason to kill anyone. Makoto's words sounded more like he was bragging about his life, which undoubtedly pushed him closer to the edge. Thus, Makoto advanced 5 spaces, becoming the first. At this moment, Yuichi expressed his belief in Makoto and confidently stated that he had figured out who the traitor was. This made Tenji's heart race. Yuichi simply said he had found a way to clear the game. The game rules were absolutely fair. When Yuichi discovered in the 6th round that advancing didn't increase debt, but rather reduced it, he realized that if everyone reached the finish line without writing negative comments, the increased debts would offset each other, allowing them to clear the game. However, the appearance of the traitor disrupted this method. Yuichi proposed that everyone except the first person write their own negative comments, putting the traitor in a passive position and preventing them from writing against the first place, thus ending the game. Tenji chose to question Yuichi, asking if he knew the traitor's identity and stating that if the traitor didn't reveal themselves in the next round, he would no longer believe Yuichi's words. Just then, Manabu announced that the number of negative comments this time was 10. Tenji was able to keep his composure because he realized that Yuichi had overlooked a rule. There was no stipulation that negative comments could only be written about the first place. In a position of advantage, Tenji directly asked Yuichi to name the traitor. However, Yuichi stated that he was just bluffing, trying to find out who the traitor was. From Tenji's perspective, his goal was about to succeed. Shiho quickly regained the first position and was only 1 space away from finishing the game. At this point, Yuichi suggested that in the next round, everyone write the same content on their paper. I voluntarily joined the friend game. The applicants for the game must be the traitor, and the staff responsible for the game certainly knew their identity. This way, they could verify the truth of the statements, and the traitor would expose themselves. Yuichi proposed that in the next round, everyone write the same content and meet at Shiho's finish line. As the monitoring manager watched the surveillance, she suddenly sensed something was wrong and had to lament that they had brought an incredible troublemaker into this game. Tenji was extremely anxious at this moment, and Yuichi asked him to write first. Tenji planned to wait until his identity was exposed to perform a sob story. When Makoto announced the result, Mikasa Tenji, Tenji was stunned and hurriedly put on a crying act, starting his performance. However, when Tenji thought his act had moved Yuichi, Yuichi showed no mercy and questioned, "Were you the one who signed up for the friend game?" Tenji helplessly admitted it. How did Yuichi find out who the traitor was? It turned out that before the second round of the game began, Yuichi had planned to find the traitor in his own way. When the first negative comment appeared, Yuichi discreetly gave Shiho a note as a hint. Tenji thought Yuichi was too trusting of Shiho, but Yuichi insisted that Shiho had passed the trust test. After the first round of negative comments, Yuichi asked Shiho to write down a secret that only the two of them knew. The negative comments that appeared in the same round could only have been written by the traitor. Then Yuichi asked Yutori to write a negative comment about Shiho that only she knew. This method would help eliminate suspects one by one. During the 3 minutes that Tenji had to write his negative comment, Yuichi continuously provided hints to his teammates. It could be said that from the very beginning, Yuichi had controlled the entire game. Then, with the emergence of special conditions, if Makoto were the traitor, he wouldn't have actively chosen to write against himself. Thus, it became obvious who the traitor was. Yuichi also understood the rule that multiple negative comments could be written, but he wanted to confirm whether Tenji's motives were related to debt or something else. To ensure trust among friends, Yuichi collected everyone's name tags. Only the numbers on the name tags would double. Holding them wouldn't violate any rules. Tenji accepted his defeat gracefully. At this point, the host announced that although the traitor had been identified, it would not affect Shiho's fate of reaching the finish line alone. However, Yuichi stated that he had lied in the 7th round, revealing that he was the one who had killed someone. After verification by the administrator, it was confirmed to be true. The 2nd round of negative comments ended, and Yuichi chose to participate alone in the highly difficult 3rd round for the sake of everyone. The host encouraged everyone to say some supportive words for Yuichi, but no one could bring themselves to speak in front of a former murderer. Just as Yuichi was about to cross the finish line, Tenji claimed he had also lied during the game, stating that he didn't like Shiho but Yuichi instead. To prove his genuine feelings for Yuichi, the bespectacled man admitted that he was there just to help clear the 3rd round. At this point, Tenji chose to reveal the truth about participating in the friend game. This was actually his 2nd time joining. In middle school, Tenji had 2 best friends, and he had invested 1 million to start a business with them. However, after Shiho appeared, the originally smooth operations of their funding became problematic. His friends showed no concern for the money and kept asking about Tenji's relationship with Shiho. After Tenji repeatedly explained, they reluctantly began to trust him. After the 3 worked together again, the funding resumed smoothly, and they quickly tripled their money. They all attended the same high school. One day, a friend proposed dividing the 3 million they had earned into 3 parts for separate operations. When their total funds reached 20 million, the person who managed the most would become the future boss of the startup. But then his friend suggested that the final boss would have the right to propose to Shiho. Not wanting to jeopardize their friendship, Tenji treated it as a joke. However, later, Tenji was kidnapped and taken to the friend game venue, where one of his friends had to repay a 10 million debt. Tenji was betrayed by the 2 friends and ended up bearing the entire 20 million debt alone. As a minor, the friend game would take away his life worth 20 million. When Tenji was released, he angrily confronted his friends, but they claimed that all the money had been spent on Shiho. Tenji couldn't believe that the seemingly innocent Shiho could be like this. Unable to bear the pressure, Tenji broke the confidentiality agreement of the friend game and disclosed everything to his father. After learning the truth, Tenji's father decided to go to Shiho's house for clarification, but he suddenly died on the way. Shiho's father, a police officer, claimed it was a suicide, but how could that be possible? Since then, Tenji has been investigating Shiho's movements every moment. However, one day he received a death threat. Tenji decided to take a gamble and join the friend game, forcing her into a corner. Upon hearing this, Yuichi felt he had disrupted Tenji's plan, but Tenji insisted that Shiho had told a huge lie, which could serve as evidence that she was the traitor. After passing the 2nd round, the total amount of debt would be disclosed, and currently, their total debt was 10.8 million. If no one had lied from the beginning, the total debt should have been 18.8 million. Tenji pointed out that his debt in the 1st round was only 1.6 million, leaving a remaining gap of 4 million. This meant that Shiho in the 1st round must not have faced any punishment for the debts to match up with the current amount. Was Shiho really the true traitor? Yuichi couldn't fully trust Tenji and asked why he was following him. Tenji revealed that his purpose in joining the friend game was to avenge his father. He wanted to destroy the operation of the friend game. To convince Yuichi, Tenji took off his name tag to prove his determination, stating that he had no complaints about being used as a tool to clear the game. Yuichi chose to trust Tenji, but for now, clearing the 3rd round was the most important task. The 3rd round of the game involved a friendship-based hide-and-seek competition. This time, it was a combat mode where each team had to send out one hider, while the rest sought them out. The team that found the opposing team's hider first would win. Yuichi, in a 2-person team, had to face a 5-person team. The rules mentioned that if anyone believed their team would lose during the game, they could choose to betray their team and join the other side, shifting their debts onto their former teammates. This meant that even if they didn't clear the game, they could exit with 0 debt. If either Yuichi or Tenji betrayed, the game would end immediately. The host asked Yuichi if he wanted to team up with another team that had only one member. Given the slim chances of both of them clearing, Yuichi agreed. This girl was actually a monitor sent by the organizers after hearing about Yuichi's plan to destroy the friend game. If your friends made you stay in one place without food or drink for several days and you couldn't contact them, could you still trust them? At this moment, Tenji had been starved for 3 days and nights. To prevent the newly joined girl Maria from surrendering, only Tenji could act as the hider. On the way, Yuichi mentioned the rules of the game. Both teams couldn't use violence to obtain information about the hider, and once the hider had chosen a hiding spot, they couldn't move. The food for the hider had to be provided by teammates without revealing the hider's location. When the game started, the administrator provided each person with a phone for communication. At this point, Tenji asked Yuichi how they could win the game. Yuichi said they would have to use underhanded methods depending on what Tenji could endure. However, after a full 2 days, Yuichi still had no news. Tenji began to suspect he had been betrayed and considered pressing the surrender button. But after calming down, he chose to call Yuichi. However, the voice that came through was from a member of Group K. He told Tenji that Yuichi had abandoned him and had never looked for the hider, instead spending every day eating, drinking, and having fun with the new girl. He even wanted to call Yuichi to tell Tenji that everything he said was true. But by this time, Tenji had calmed down. He hung up the phone and chose to trust Yuichi's actions. The members of Group K didn't deceive Tenji, but they weren't worried at all because they held the winning strategy for this round. Regardless of how difficult the game was, it ultimately tested friendship. As long as they could occupy the food supply point and slowly drag out the time, it didn't matter if they found the hider. At this point, Tenji was so starved that he was losing his sanity and was hallucinating. He thought he had finally received food and water from Yuichi. But during this time, Yuichi had indeed been, as Group K said, lounging at the food supply point, doing nothing and even sharing information with the enemy. Now, Yuichi finally planned to take action. He expressed his intention to switch sides to Group K. The members of Group K decided to consult their captain first. Yuichi mocked them for needing the captain to decide on such a minor matter, but unfortunately, his provocation didn't have the desired effect. Group K members did not accept Yuichi's surrender, but little did they know that this was part of Yuichi's plan. On the 4th day, Yuichi learned from Hyakutaro of Group K that the 5 of them were originally from a basketball team. However, due to his mistake, their captain had been injured, and Hyakutaro felt very guilty, practicing his shooting every night. At this point, Yuichi suddenly spoke up, asking, "If that's the case, why are you all caught up in participating in this friend game?" Just as Hyakutaro was about to reveal the traitor, a teammate from Group K stopped him. They then discovered that Maria had disappeared. Hyakutaro thought, "This is bad," and hurried to chase after her, only to find Maria in the shower. Seizing this opportunity, Yuichi grabbed the food and ran out. They split up to chase the two of them, ultimately encountering each other at the edge of a cliff. Just when the members of Group K thought Yuichi had miscalculated, he pushed Maria toward the cliff. Tenji, on the brink of a mental breakdown, finally received the food Yuichi sent. Tenji had never pressed the surrender button, while Maria had already been rescued by Group K. Through his observations of Group K over the past few days, Yuichi discovered that although Hyakutaro appeared volatile, he was more loyal than anyone else. Yuichi was confident that Hyakutaro would definitely go to save Maria. As for Chisato, Yuichi suspected that he would likely agree to Hyakutaro's request. Reaching this point already meant they had achieved half of their victory, and the remaining task was to completely destroy the interpersonal relationships within Group K. Tenji asked Yuichi how to undermine their relationships. Yuichi suggested using Maria to implement a beauty trap on the members of Group K. At this moment, the rescued Maria began her own operation, effortlessly capturing Hyakutaro's heart with just a few words. When Yuichi returned, he found Yuichi casually embracing Maria as if nothing had happened. The real show was just beginning because winning this game would grant them 2 million. Both sides didn't want to lose, as losing the game meant bearing a debt of 20 million. When the men publicly humiliated her, Yuichi's violent behavior towards women infuriated Hyakutaro from Group K, and this was the result Yuichi wanted. Everything was orchestrated by Yuichi. Just when Yuichi thought he would undoubtedly win the game, something unexpected happened. His teammate Maria betrayed him. Not only did she switch sides to Group K, but she also revealed Tenji's hiding spot. After everyone left, Yuichi revealed a smile. Confident K successfully found Tenji. Just as he was about to announce the game results, Manabu notified them that Group C had won the friendship-based hide-and-seek. Everyone was stunned. The referee surprisingly awarded victory to Group C, which only had 2 members. Although it was Group K that found the hider, their hider pressed the surrender button at a crucial moment. While everyone was still in a state of confusion, K realized what had happened. He had underestimated Yuichi. After everyone left, he called Group K's hider and urged him to press the surrender button. Of course, the other party refused. However, Yuichi held Hyakutaro as a hostage and threatened him, saying that if he didn't press the button, he would beat Hyakutaro until he did. Immediately, the sound of punches could be heard on the other end. Despite Hyakutaro repeatedly telling him that Yuichi was bluffing, Juzo couldn't help but worry about Hyakutaro. Seeing that the other party still wouldn't press the surrender button, Yuichi decided to pull out his trump card. He knew they were a basketball team, so he informed Juzo that Hyakutaro had been practicing shooting every day. If he didn't press the button, Yuichi would break one of Hyakutaro's fingers. After all, once a finger is broken and healed, the shooting feel would be altered. To prevent Hyakutaro from biting his tongue, Yuichi stuffed his mouth. He warned that if they didn't press the surrender button within 10 seconds, Hyakutaro's finger would be broken. Just as the man hesitated, the sound of a finger breaking came through. Juzo felt extremely guilty, but Yuichi hadn't given up yet. He threatened to continue breaking Hyakutaro's fingers if Juzo didn't comply. Even so, Juzo struggled for a long time, primarily due to his guilt. Everyone had joined this game because of him. From the very beginning, Yuichi had sensed that the one borrowing money in Group K was Juzo, and he knew that Juzo would rather hurt himself than let his teammates get hurt. If they played this card right, victory was assured. Juzo was furious and punched Yuichi, repeatedly beating him. At that moment, Hyakutaro intervened, which confused Juzo. But when he saw Hyakutaro's hand, he instantly understood. Yuichi had broken his own finger to lead Juzo into making a wrong decision, thereby winning the game. However, K was unconvinced. He believed that Juzo was the one who lost, not himself. His plan had been flawless, and he vented his dissatisfaction at Juzo. Ultimately, Juzo decided to bear the enormous debt of Group K alone. Yuichi's incredible comeback left the friend game operators in awe. He had known Maria's true identity all along, and it was precisely because he knew this that he had pushed Maria off the cliff. With some time left before the 4th game began, the friend game decided to temporarily send the 2 of them back, but they had to abide by the rules. No leaking information, no escaping. When they returned to school, the entire class had changed. The blackboard was filled with negative comments. Yutori was helping friends wipe down desks and informed them that Shiho and Makoto were both missing. What had happened? It turned out that a week prior, as they were leaving the friend game, Shiho had also noticed the debt issue. However, she said not to worry about the debts, which directly confirmed that the traitor was Shiho. Yutori then told them that after Shiho returned, she didn't immediately run away. Rather, it wasn't an escape, but was due to what Makoto had done. Yutori recounted everything to them. When they returned, the atmosphere in the class had shifted. The class monitor believed that Shiho was the one who had stolen money, and the proposal to collect cash had also come from Shiho to the teacher. Makoto absolutely wouldn't allow them to question Shiho like that. He insisted that his family had plenty of money. Wasn't it just 2 million? Makoto decided he would cover that 2 million himself. But 2 days later, Makoto's father was arrested. With his father in custody, Makoto was certainly not in a good position either. It was likely that Makoto had told his father about the friend game, leading to this outcome. The classmates in the class began to bully Makoto. Initially, Makoto endured it, but 2 days later, he didn't come to school at all. Tenji and Yuichi decided to check on Makoto at his house. To their surprise, they found the house surrounded by onlookers. Yuichi asked a bystander what had happened, and the person informed him that Makoto's father had died in the house. At that moment, A bloodied Makoto was escorted out. It seemed the situation had escalated. Yuichi rushed forward to ask what had happened. Makoto was desperately explaining that it wasn't him. It was Shiho's fault. He wanted to say more, but Shiho's father interrupted him, recognizing Tenji. Tenji was furious. His enemy was right in front of him. Yuichi urged Tenji to calm down, as he had intended to inquire about Shiho's whereabouts, but Shiho's father refused to tell them, citing a contagious disease. He wouldn't disclose which hospital Shiho was in, indicating that there were serious problems between Shiho and her father. As they were about to head home, Yutori approached them, asking what had happened. However, Yuichi and her had already severed their friendship after the second game, and he expressed various negative sentiments towards her. Yuichi and the others no longer wanted Yutori to participate in the game, and decided to take her debts upon themselves. However, shortly after Yutori left, Yuichi received a call indicating that a special episode of the Friend Game was about to start. The caller questioned whether Yuichi had anything he valued, threatening him by sending a video of Yutori being held captive. The criminals even cut her clothing in front of him. Yuichi was furious, but the criminals held a knife to him, saying that if he wanted to let her go, he would have to participate in a game where the weak would triumph. The rules were simple. Yutori had to choose who would take the beating. If she chose herself, the pain would be less for Yuichi. She couldn't speak while making her choice, or else both of them would face punishment. Even before the first round of the beating game started, Yutori was already terrified. After all, if she took a punch from the muscular man in front of her, her pretty face would be ruined. Yutori had 5 seconds to make her choice. If she didn't, it would automatically be Yuichi. The young man began the countdown. In the end, Yuichi stepped forward willingly and took 3 hard hits. Yutori cried, saying that she would take the next round instead. The young man was touched. He placed Yutori's hand on the table. Terrified, Yutori wept as she feared for her freshly done nails. She begged Yuichi to save her, which excited the young man even more. Yuichi was indeed a real man. Just as he wished, the young man ruthlessly pulled off 3 of Yuichi's nails. Yuichi noted this grudge down. He began to mock the white-haired man, accusing him of being a leader who couldn't even produce $100. However, the young man claimed he didn't care and insisted he was the smartest person there, boasting that he would never betray his friends. But Yuichi had already devised a plan to deal with him. In the final game, if Yutori chose herself, she would have to strip and dance. If she chose Yuichi, he would be stabbed in the hand 3 times. Always timid, Yutori still couldn't make a choice, and Yuichi's hand received another 3 knife wounds. Now the young man was as arrogant as ever, but afterward, he found himself in quite a predicament. After the game ended, Yuichi comforted Yutori, reminding her that she was also a victim and not to take it too much to heart. Just as the young man was about to leave, Yuichi proposed a game with him, offering a reward of 10 million yen. If he won, he would get it. However, the young man was skeptical that Yuichi could come up with that much money. Yuichi replied, "Since you know my past, this amount is nothing to me." Seeing the money, the young man agreed. The game was a simple game of rock, paper, scissors. If he won, he would win 10 million yen, but if he lost, he would have to chop off a finger. Losing with paper would cost him 5 fingers, while losing with scissors would only cost him 2. Choosing rock would have no risk. Yuichi told him that his hand could only show paper or rock. Just as the game was about to start, the young man hesitated. Yuichi began to mimic his earlier arrogance, taunting him, "You have such a huge advantage and still won't play? You want to be the boss?" He then turned to the young man's subordinates, saying that if their boss won, each person would get 1 million yen. The subordinates became excited, and the young man agreed, starting to do the math in his head. While showing paper held the highest risk, Yuichi could only show rock or paper. If he chose paper, he was sure to win. He asked Yuichi what would happen in the case of a tie. Yuichi assured him that a tie wouldn't happen. The young man was confident he would win, but unexpectedly, Yuichi's other hand showed scissors. At that moment, the young man couldn't handle it and quickly ordered his subordinates to capture Yuichi. Just then, a savior arrived. The official staff of the Friend Game showed up in time and subdued all the subordinates. Now it was Yuichi's turn to be arrogant, demanding that the young man give him all 5 fingers. But the young man panicked and refused to acknowledge it. Yuichi said that stopping was not impossible. He just needed to choose a friend to take his place and cut off one finger. But none of his friends stepped forward. At that moment, Yuichi fainted from blood loss, and the young man was captured by the friend game personnel. Yutori anxiously called out to Yuichi, but Maria imitated her. Then Maria pulled out her phone and told Tenji that Makoto had become a murderer. If they participated in the next game, they might be able to save him. But saving him would mean taking on a debt of 500 million yen. As Tenji hesitated, Yuichi woke up and grabbed Tenji, telling him that money wasn't important. What mattered most was friendship. After saying this, he fainted again. The fourth game. The guilty court is about to begin.